Hi, I'm Ira Gostin, and it's my pleasure to be here today. And I'm going to talk about creating meaningful engagement during a crisis. But I'm also going to talk a little bit about PR in general and what the way that I do PR and some of my colleagues, and we'll kind of engage this a little bit differently. Here's kind of the order of things today. Um, and you'll be able to tell when I kind of switch sections because I've got some fun quotes from some people in the business and business leaders. So, and then we will have some time for questions at the end. But like I said, feel free to jump in. So here's a little bit about who I am. I have been a storyteller most of my life. For those of you that don't know what that is, in that black and white picture at the bottom, that's called a typewriter. My career started out as a photojournalist for the Associated Press. And I decided kind of as we hit the new millennium that journalism was changing and I didn't really want to be a part of whatever the new journalism was. So I went to grad school and got my MBA and had a few marketing director jobs here in town, and had an opportunity to be on the ground floor of a publicly traded mining company startup. And it was pretty exciting. And so worked on that for almost a decade. And I started an agency and sold an agency and went to work for another agency. And at the end of the day, I'm just more comfortable working on my own. I've got a handful of global clients, mostly in the industrial space. And kind of we'll talk about what that looks like and how I do things moving forward. So, you know, everybody has this idea of what PR is and marketing, and you know, there's some glimmers of reality in that, but at the end of the day, it's really more like that. And I can't see anybody's faces, but I know there's a couple of you that I saw that are probably smiling right now. And the next slide, I sort of show this is what we do on a daily basis. And the reason that that's important is for those of you that are business owners or entrepreneurs that are going to do your own marketing, that are going to do your own PR, this is normal. And so you don't just send a press release out and then sit back and wait for the business to roll in. It takes time to cultivate, and you get frustrated and annoyed and aggravated and think that it doesn't work, and then something will hit and you go through that again. If you're not familiar with Seth Godin, he's a marketer and an author and an educator. And it's really, this is really true. And especially in the digital era, things have really changed about the story. And so what the story is it's that conversation that you're having with your stakeholders, with your customers, with your vendors, with your employees. And it all has to do with the efficiency of you telling your story. And that means that that conversation has to be natural and authentic, and actually has to have a direction. And what this is sort of the academic definition of stakeholder engagement. And I've sort of adopted this out of the corporate social responsibility world. In that world, they're constantly doing stakeholder mapping. They're constantly doing stakeholder analysis. And I really thought that when you look at your whole group of stakeholders, it gives you a much better idea. So, you know, what this statement is, what stakeholder engagement is you're taking all of the people that have some kind of interest in your business, and you're identifying what they need to not only hear or see, what the brand is, how does that speak to them, and then crafting a communications and marketing strategy to connect all the dots. In marketing, we call every time your brand touches a customer or a stakeholder, we call it a touch point. So it's truly connecting all of those dots. I think in the 70s and 80s, they used to say it took 7 brand impressions for you to have a memorable remembrance of a brand. And that number is now 37. The amount of data that we're hit with is 100 times more than it was 30 years ago. So the efficiency at which you develop those touch points is really important. So what at Gostin Strategic, what we do is we use a design thinking approach. We look at everything from the customer's position, walking in their shoes, and you know, this is a whole nother talk about design thinking. And I saw Larry Daly here, so if you ever have a chance to talk to Larry, he's the master at this. But we look at everything to start from that 30,000 foot view and really kind of come up with a plan, prototype it to see if it's going to work, and then build it into the strategy. And what we do is then we take this public relations campaign and we create a stakeholder engagement. And it's not a typo, you're seeing a bullet twice because it's that important. The telling of the story is what marketing is about these days. And it may be telling the story through billboards or a design element or some other avenue that we haven't even come up with yet. You know, the perfect way to get to your stakeholders might be through TikTok. And you know, that's a whole knowledge base that doesn't really even exist yet. They're just figuring it out. So if you're a business owner, an entrepreneur, you've got, you know, for those of us that do this for a living, we're looking at our client story. One of the things we forget to do sometimes is market ourselves. So, you know, we're always our own client. But what is the story? And what is that best way to tell it? And this is a pretty good brainstorming session to get to this. But once you can kind of establish what your story is, then the rest of it will fall into place. So really, you know, these are the key points of how to create an engagement in a critical time. And I think it's all pretty self-explanatory. The last two are, well, the last three. You're not selling at this point. All you're trying to do is have a conversation. And so you're not selling, and being authentic and sincere is so important, because when that comes across to a person that you're talking to, and they may be a potential client or a customer, that comes across as something that I want to do business with this person. And you rehearse this. I talk to a lot of entrepreneurs about their matchbook pitch or their elevator pitch. And it's really hard to get to getting people to understand your goal on an elevator pitch is only for the person to say, that's really interesting, tell me more. That's it. That's the only goal that you have with an elevator pitch. You're not trying to get a purchase order. You're not trying to set a sales meeting. All you want to do is just kind of tease the person, set that hook a little bit where they just say, yeah, I'd like to know more about this. So there's three really must-haves in any kind of storytelling, communications, public relations campaign. And they're pretty simple, but when you leave one of them out, it's blatantly obvious that you've left something out. So the must-haves, what is your message? What are you trying to say? If you think about, you're driving down 395, you see a billboard and it caught your attention, you glanced up for a minute, something in that visual made you smile, but by the time your car got a mile down the road, you had no idea what the billboard was for. So somebody spent a lot of money on something that failed, right? You saw it, it caught your attention, but the message was buried and it didn't take hold. Who are you speaking to? This goes back to that stakeholder analysis. Who is your audience? What segment of the audience? Is this the right message to this audience? You may have a group of stakeholders that you have to segment 3 or 4 different ways. And if you look at retail establishments, we'll take Best Buy, for example. They have different levels. They send marketing to me and they send it to my 22-year-old. And the tone and the speech and the message are completely different. And they do the research up front to know and understand who their audience is. So if they send me information about gaming consoles, there's a higher than not potential for me ignoring it. I'm not a gamer. So, but if they send me something about new Macs or a super monitor or something in the business realm, that's going to get my attention. And then the last thing is, what do you want them to do? You have to tell the recipient of the message what to do. It can be as simple as call this 800 number, or go to this website, or get in your car right now and drive to Jack in the Box and hit the drive-throughs open 24 hours. It's 2 in the morning. Tell them what you want them to do. So all of your communications and your storytelling should have these 3 components somewhere in them. I'll get into some kind of specific examples so that you've got some kind of takeaways, and then, my hope is we can talk about them a little bit. But, you need to do, if you're a retail business or a B2B or service related, whatever it is, you need to know how to describe your company. So you need to have some basic company information. Vision's always good. Mission statements, I'm actually going to show you one, are still pretty big in the nonprofit world, but it's kind of moved over to vision and values. An info sheet is just taking all the information of your business and putting it in one place. And I'll show you a couple examples of that. Your matchbook pitch or your elevator pitch, you need to be able to describe your business in a specific and concise way at the drop of a hat. And not only you, but your team, your family members, your employees, your investors. If people have a stake in your business, there's that stakeholder thing again, They really need to be able to know how to say it, and it should be rehearsed and practiced. You may have, one that you deliver to your Rotary Club and one that you deliver to a potential client, but it's okay to have a few different versions of it. By contact protocol, if you, let's say, have a retail and somebody calls up and says, "Hey, I'm from the media. Does your team know what to do?" The response is, let me take a message. I'll call the owner and get him to call you, or here's his or her email address, whatever it is. It should be something that your team knows. And you should be sending out regular news releases. You can certainly, hire somebody to do that. You can do them yourself. It's pretty simple to do. You can Google how to write a news release, and there's more information than you have time to read. But we have publications in our community. We have a daily newspaper. We have TV stations. We have a business newspaper. We have an online newspaper. So there are outlets to run stories. So we recently worked with Northern Nevada International Center, and it was a really, really cool project because it's an organization that I'm just a huge fan of, and I've become really great friends with the team there. And there was a total disconnect. The senior managers had basically this information, but the rest of the team didn't have it all in the same place. Their logo was a little outdated. So our art director, Lori Kunder, created a new logo, a visual campaign. And then, we wrote these documents. So again, because they're a nonprofit, in that world, the mission statement is still a viable thing. And, definitely worked hard to come up with a way to describe a multifaceted program. So very happy with how that came out, and they were too. So these are 3 examples of one sheets. It's pretty standard communications tool, and I'll kind of just walk you through them. The one on the left was for a gold company that I did their investor relations for, and really doesn't have, it was a 2-pager, so the back has some disclosure items on there. But, it's got the markets that they trade on, how to find the website. It's got the gee-whiz facts of the asset, who the management team is, and, basically basic investor information. The middle one was for Reno Bites Week, which we have a different version now, but this was a few years ago. And we wanted to make a really fun infographic. And this kind of became our information sheet. And, it's fun. Gee whiz facts are always great. And it took me a couple days to come up with that 650,000 bites will be eaten, because we calculated it out 2 different ways, and they pretty much met in the middle. So that was pretty good. And I put mine up there because mine's pretty simple. And when you'll be able to get the slide deck from NCET on Thursday with the replay of this. And so you can see that a little more up close. But it doesn't have to be formatted. That's just a Word doc that we've turned into a PDF. So pretty simple, but it tells about the business. It tells how to reach us. And it talks about what we do. And that's really what you need, is just have all that information in one place. Yes, it's super simple to send people to a website, but when a media person is sitting down to write a caption or work on their story, they'd much rather have a one sheet instead of having to go search through a website and find the information. So it's just a great tool that costs very little. And, everything is just sort of headed in a direction of what's your definition of success? I love this graphic. I think it kind of covers a little bit of everything. And really just, it's you define what success looks like. If it's your business or your store, or your idea that you're getting ready to launch, you get to decide what that success looks like and what things are important moving forward. And with that, I would love for you to unmute yourself and ask questions, talk to me about some of this.
Ira, obviously a lot has changed in the last 4 months. What would you say are the 1 or 2 biggest changes that you've seen in communicating to stakeholders?
I think the authenticity piece, it's always been, it's always sort of been there, but there's been so much thrown at us that, Dave and I were having an email conversation back and forth about, I'm going to do this so I can see everybody. So about, how many letters did you all get in February and March? During these tumultuous times, during these uncertain times, during these troubling times, and they were just ridiculous. And sorry, but I actually added to the mix and wrote a couple of these for clients, but some of them were sincere, and others were just hideously bad. My favorite one was "Dear bracket first name close bracket," it's so. I think the people that have had impact with their communications have found a new level of sincerity that really comes across in a positive way.
Ira, my favorite on those letters were the ones that went into all the detail about how they cleaned. Like the one from Starbucks was like this long on the email, letting us know that they cleaned the tables and mopped the floors. And it was like, it had never occurred to me before that they didn't. And so all of a sudden I started wondering about their hygiene habits.
And that's like, people were doing that. The one from Starbucks, I was so embarrassed. I worked at Starbucks downtown while I was in grad school, and it just always has a special place in my heart. And I was embarrassed because it was bad. It was just flat out bad. And they took. Did you post that link, Dave? Okay. So please go into the chat and cut and paste that link out. I meant to do that and I forgot about it. It is fantastic. And they've basically taken, like, you don't realize how many of these there were until you watch this video. And some of them are really kind of touching and they're authentic. And there's other ones that are like, let's see, I've got the checklist here. We need to protect our brand. So we need to pretend we're really sad, even though, you know, we've sold through Lysol wipes for the next 50 years and we're making money hand over fist. But we'll check this box and we'll check this box, and, you know, we'll have a picture of the CEO with a little tear on his eye. And there's just a lot of companies who have not done their brand proud by the way that they've handled this.
Dave, there's another factor to these letters that have come out, and they jumped on one side of the fence or the other. And as a result, since we're in a divided country, they literally alienated 50% of their audience. You know, so I'm a member of the Public Relations Society of America. So is Jackie. And there's been a lot of conversation about diversity and inclusion, and you know, look where we are. You know, yes, can we all do better? Absolutely. Can we be a little more front of mind? But I'm not going to enter into that conversation. I don't have employees. I have received a couple emails from some people that I don't know, that the first thing is, "Dear Ira, we are a Black-owned business." And it's like, okay, that's cool, but how about I'm an accountant that's going to keep you from going to jail? That to me is a little more important. But there's a balance of the level of sensitivity. And the fact that we live in Reno is a thing. And so there's all of these things that are going on out there. And the trick is, you just need to think before you put one foot in front of the other. Certainly think before your foot ends up in your mouth. Yep, big time.
Kind of to Jackie's point, is there any value? I've been getting a whole new wave of these that car rental companies are saying, we're cleaning our cars, which kind of implies that they didn't used to, and hotels are doing it. Is that a good thing to do, or does it reinforce the fact that A, you're being opportunistic, and B, you should have been doing these things anyway?
There's a way to do it. So I'll share something that happened. Aaron and I needed to get out of town. And those of you that don't know, my wife's a nurse at St. Mary's, and she's a little burned out right now. So her birthday is July 4th. And so normally we make a big damn deal out of it, and we get people to light off fireworks and stuff for her. Oh, cool. And nice. So we went to Sonoma. And we didn't do anything really. We just kind of hung out at the hotel, and we had a little patio there with our room, but I had occasion to talk to the general manager, and I said, you know, you guys sent out an email before the hotel reopened, which was July 1st, and it was, we're washing our hands and we're mopping the floors. And oh, by the way, we're not going to charge you the $29 a day resort fee, or $32 a day. And then later in the email, it said, oh, and we're not doing wine tasting. There's no shuttle, and there's no this. Like, all the stuff that the resort fee went to cover wasn't offered. So thanks for the favor. And so I told him, I said, you know, it was a rough email. We know your property. We've stayed here many times. We keep coming back. You know, I'm a Marriott Grand Poobah member, so, you know, we're pretty loyal to Marriott. And, but when I came into the room, a letter from you that just said, we're taking this seriously, and call the front desk if you feel that anything isn't meeting the cleanliness standards that you believe we should be meeting. No promises, just that you want to hear. And he looked at me and he goes, wow, that would have been really good. And I said, what's it going to cost you? You know, I don't know how many rooms you have, a few hundred copies, you know, doesn't have to be crazy. It just has to be simple.
Sorry, I missed that. Could you?
So whatever I just said, Siri thought I was talking. Oh, no, I just said it again. Shut up.
She has
The
a puppy.
technology is all around us. It's a woman's name. So it's, I mean, and this is where, if you are a hotelier, you get an agency and you sit down and talk to somebody and you tell them, like, we have some stuff to say, but we don't want to come across like insensitive jerks, or we don't want to come across like greedy capitalists. We want to be sincere. And that's where an agency really helps you. But it's so important. It costs so little, yet it's really kind of overlooked in exchange for that quick hit. And everybody's doing it. I just saw a Mercedes commercial today where now, they of course had like an industrial fogger with a guy in a hazmat suit fogging the inside of the car. But, they're basically saying, hey, and we wiped down where we touched. Okay.
Ira, we've talked several times about the importance of getting in your customers' shoes, but I don't think I've ever asked you, what is the first thing you do to try to get in your customers' shoes and kind of help them get in their customers' shoes to develop a new perspective?
So I have a size 14 foot, so I don't wear anybody's shoes. But we have we do all the onboarding, like what are your goals, what keeps you up at night, blah, blah, blah. We do all that stuff, get all that crap out of the way. It's a little harder right now because you can't do it over the phone. I've got to see your body language. And if it's a retail organization, I make them come in the front door, or I might even make them drive around the block and park. And inevitably there will be some comment of, we always keep one of those doors locked, but it's the right-hand door. And that's the one everybody reaches for. So it's kind of stupid there's a thing where they've never even come in the front door before. And it's imperative that they go through their process. If it's, I had a client that is a scone bakery in Atlanta. The first thing I did was, I want you to make 2 packages and you ship one to yourself at home and ship one to me. Well, why can't I just take it home? Nope, I want you to go through the process and I want you to be a customer. And when she opened the box, she felt it was a little bit of a letdown. So they changed. They went to a branded box that has a flap. So like you guys know what I'm talking about, but you undo the flap, you cut the tape, and then you open it up. And inside of there is now tissue paper with a sticker. And when you open the tissue paper, there's a card that says, there's 2 cards. One says, let's get sconed. And the other one says, welcome to the scondom. And talk about setting your expectations. It totally changed the vibe. Nobody ever complained about the price of scones once they got that new packaging. So to me, that's the important thing. And Stacy Kenyon is here from the Northern Nevada International Center. And how many times did we exercise going through all the verbiage and changing it and trying to look at it from the customers? And we just kept going over it and going over it. Let's say it out loud. Let's type it. I want you guys to print it and hang it up in your bathroom so you see it in the morning and you see it at night. Like when we do a logo, like I want people to carry it around with them all day. If we could put it on a t-shirt cheap, like I want you to live that brand, because at the end of the week, I want you to go, this is it. This is our brand. Not, I'm on the fence still. If you're on the fence still, we're not there yet. So yeah, the prototyping piece is really huge.
You mentioned that it used to be 7 hits to get their attention. Now it's 37. Have you done something where you ramp up each one slightly different, getting closer and closer to the target goal as they get the next and the next? Or is it a replication of the same?
So that number is really more for retail. I don't really do that much B2C. So, you know, the scone business, I had a retail establishment in town here. But you know, getting to 37 touch points before you make a sale is just tough. So the trick is to create a campaign that's multifaceted. So it has tracks. You're going to have a PR track, and you're going to have messaging that goes out that way. And then you might have another track that is a direct mail campaign, and it's going to have some of that same language. You may do a podcast or a webinar. And so, you know, you're going to have multiple touch points. Getting to 37 is tough. But that number, and I've seen that number, people have said 12, and I've seen it 700. So, you know, everybody writes an article and gets it published in some journal, and now that's the new standard. But 37 was kind of the average that I found. So, but the trick is it has to be a campaign. So I get calls that say, hey, you know, how much do you charge for a press release? We don't do press releases. I will create a campaign for you, and press releases will be a component of it. But you can't track the effectiveness of a single press release, because usually there isn't one. I mean, you might get lucky and get a hit, but it's a series of touch points that build upon the campaign. And that's where that strategic piece really comes in. What else can we talk about?
Ira, I would just, this is Kit here, just add from having my own business, and I love the point about the touch points, that it's the touch points in the good times, but Ira, it's the touch points in the difficult times. And I think for those of us who have been in business a long time, particularly in a service-related business, you know, mine's professional coaching, the worst thing we can do is go hide under our desk when things get difficult, like in our last recession, 08, 09, 10, 12. But to be able to continue to reach out and to be there for our folks that we've done business with for years is really important, even if some of that is going to be pro bono. And a lot of the professional coaches are doing that and really helping to support organizations that are supporting first responders. And like your wife there and those nurses. So I love that point about the touch points. It's the consistency and being very genuine about it.
The consistency is the hardest part, because you'll get businesses that will say, yeah, we're really struggling, we need to do marketing. It's too late. When you should say, let's ramp up our marketing, is when it's like, holy crap, business is booming. I have to hire new people. I can't even handle all the work. Wow, we really should do some marketing, which never happens, but that's when you do it. I had a job, I had a series of director of marketing type jobs after I finished grad school, leading into the recession. And I was the head of strategy for a professional firm that to work with clients to help them with their bottom line. And I had a conversation with the owner on Friday, which was, we're starting to feel the effects of this recession coming. So this was 2009, I guess. And he goes, but I'm really committed to the work that you're doing, and the clients that you're working with are getting it. And we need to roll this out to more of our clients. So I'm going to spend a little bit more money, and we're going to work with some clients, and those clients that we need to give a break to, we're going to give a break to. But I just want you to know we're totally committed to what you're doing and to getting our clients to grow. And then I got laid off on Monday. So it must have been a hell of a weekend. So, but that's what happens. Like business, you people, it's like, what are we going to do? And this is a time, I have had more conversations with people. It's like, hey, I know you're struggling. What can I do to help? Well, I can't really afford, this isn't a business pitch. This is me as a former vendor and a friend. What can I do to help?
And I applaud that, Ira. I really do. Yeah, I think that's great. And especially for working with the International Center with Stacy here and the very valuable work that they're doing. Yeah, so thank you, Stacy, for all that you folks are doing there. It's important, very important.
Hey,
Oh, go ahead, Jackie.
well, can you expand on the importance of continuing to advertise and continuing to market in a bad economy? Since that's most people's first reaction is to pull back, but how powerful it can be to.
So if you look at, I have used this analogy. I kind of, John, I actually did think that. I was just like, okay, this is like a bad mob movie with Jackie's like in total shadow. So if you take a little rubber ball and you put it on the stairs and you move the rubber ball up a stair and up a stair, that is your brand getting traction. And then if you stop marketing, that ball might go down a step. But if you can work with me on this analogy, what happens when you push a rubber ball off the stairs? It's not going to go one step, right? It's going to go to the floor. And that what that says is that when you do have money again and you get ready to start marketing, you start all over again. So the question with your marketing team or your vendors or whoever you're working with isn't, we need to cut back. It's what things can we do differently that will keep our brand in front of mind, but also give my business a little bit of a break on the cost of marketing because we're not seeing the return right now. And but when you stop that forward momentum, you immediately start sliding backwards, and it's painful. And when you go to start marketing again, you've lost all that market presence that you had.
Thank you.
Ira,
I had a question just to clarify on your slides where you're talking about telling your story. So the Reno Bites, that was an example of how you tell your story, correct?
It was one piece of telling the story. So, it had, part of having an agency, it's coming up with some fun ideas as a team and then having a creative person to execute. And Lori did an amazing job with that. But if you think about it, it was a very untraditional one sheet, but it had the date. It showed where we had social media. It had interesting information that made you want to know more. It had a visual appeal, and it was just a lot of fun. And, a food week should be fun. It shouldn't be a dry, boring pitch. So I know many of you know Alice Hyman, and Alice hates the word pitch. She says, and we use it for every, you're pitching your boss on getting a day off, you're pitching a client on expanding their budget, you're always pitching. But she's like, to me, pitching is, a ball coming whizzing at my head at 100 miles an hour. And I was a catcher growing up, so I dealt with a lot of pitches. And what I see wrong with pitches is they're trying to do the wrong thing. So many people know what an elevator pitch is, and they think the elevator pitch is to close the deal. And it's simply to get that person to say, tell me more. That's all you want. You just want to get their attention. And then it's up to you to say, I've got a few minutes now, if that, or you want to set up a coffee time, or we'll set up a Zoom call, because none of us have enough of that. And it's then you go into more detail. I never ask for the sale until the third conversation. And it sounds manipulated, and it is and it's not. It's really an opportunity for me to just have honest conversations with a potential client. And while I want their business, I want to know that I'm the right fit for them. So I turned down a 6-figure client last year because it wasn't the right fit. It just, they were looking for somebody that really they needed an employee, and that's not what a consultant does. My role fits in a little bit different. So, sometimes it's not the right fit, but you get to that when you have that conversation, and you start to try and visualize what it's like to be in their shoes.
Ira, is there anybody in town that you think is doing a really, really good job of communicating right now? And then conversely, maybe without naming names, anybody who's doing an abysmal job?
This lady in the corner here is one of my heroes. But we can't see her face, so I'm not going to say her name. But I mean, yeah, Jackie gets, this is what Jackie does. I do some consulting work within Plain Sight Marketing in Carson City, and they're very community based. That's their approach. They're very, very community based and have a community feel to their work with their clients. There are a few people in town that do kind of some what we call hack work. It's not authentic, it's sometimes that's what the client wants. So it's you'll see when you pay attention to like if you read This Is Reno. A lot of our press releases will show up as sponsored content. And so you'll see stuff, you'll read a press release and you'll go, I don't have any idea what they're doing. They lost sight of that. What's the focus here? What do we want the person to do? So our little town, there's some amazing work that goes on. When you go to the Addies, which is the Ad Club Awards, or the ACE Awards for the Marketing Association, or the Silver Spikes, the PR Association's awards, there's some amazing work being done in this town. And we totally take it for granted because we're just hit with it a million different times. But, it's those commercials, those messaging, those stories that make you stop and pay attention. Not the free pie on I-80, and to be honest, does everybody know what I'm talking about? So Gold Dust West, their commercials are kind of hokey, but guess what? When you hear that little jingle or you see that free pie sign, what it's an ad for. Like you get it, it's them. And that's okay. Like that's, you know, I don't want the Gold Dust West to try and touch me here. Like that's weird. That doesn't make any sense. If I go to a casino, it's because I needed to escape reality. And so again, it's that understanding your target audience, who your stakeholders are.
By the way, a shout out to the Addies. That's where Maria and I went on our first date, and the rest is history. So,
Although I just saw something the other day where you were almost headed for the pavement out the car door. So, you know, let's be careful there.
yeah, 4 months in quarantine together.
Does anybody have a business that we have a little bit of time, right? A couple minutes. Does anybody have a business that you want some free advice on what you should do for your specific business?
I do. I'm starting a nonprofit. It's called everybodyslivesmatter.org. Not to be confused with alllivesmatter.org, which is not a nice organization. Mine is more of a benevolent communications organization, 24-hour chat room. That's more telephone, anonymous. Up to 1,000 people can talk. I'm inviting public officials and media professionals from all over the world. I have connections everywhere. And basically it's just to roll around ideas on how to improve our lives during this pandemic and beyond. And I'm really passionate about it. And I started it. It's still in the alpha stage. I haven't really put it out there yet, but I'm about to get some major sponsors and some major spokespeople.
So Lou, what do you see on how to get that word out as being your number one effective tool?
The spokespeople that I'm going to get, and the media coverage that I'll be getting worldwide.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're
and the social media coverage is going to pick up like wildfire because it's needed. We need some positive.
It's a story.
We need some positivity, and it's in memory of my mother, who always talked to everybody and always put herself in other people's shoes. And it's funny, in this conversation tonight, I heard that term being used a few times, and I do it all the time. And people think I'm just a joker, and I am, but I'm also a serious, sensitive human being who really feels a lot. I know I'm an empath, and I look
forward to seeing more. You know, and
well, if you want to take a look at it, you can go to a simple. I have 500 web domains, and I have a lot of them pointing to this one. The simple one is in enjoysoul.com. Enjoy soul, SOUL, like the soul in our beings. Enjoysoul.com, or the real long one, which people can't seem to spell properly, and the real way is everybodyslivesmatter.org. But enjoysoul.com is simple. And it's still in the, I'm still working on it. I was working on it late last night. It's not finished, so it's not ready to roll out. So
I'll look forward to when you launch it.
Do you see it? Are you looking at it?
Oh, I will.
Yeah, I'm looking.
I keep changing it every day. Dave's been one of my mentors on this, right, Dave?
We're here to help.
You've seen it change already.
Yes.
I think I've been working on it, I think, 2 weeks. This is the 10th iteration of it. And I think I'll do some more changes this afternoon and tonight. So I've become a web designer and a philanthropist and an entrepreneur. Well, I've always been an entrepreneur, but now I'm going to really get into this because I think the world needs help, and I'm ready to do it. This is what I'm destined to do.
Cool.
Hey, Lou.
Yeah.
Look into creating a 508 instead of a 501c3.
I don't see who's talking.
Bo
don't see you.
Bo Tomlin.
Oh, because you're not visible.
Yeah, it's I'm on the East Coast at the moment, so it's dark
Oh,
here.
good. Well, I used to be there too. Where are you on the East Coast, Bo?
In Florida at the moment. So
Okay.
yeah, just looking to go further down when you get to 501c3 in the code.
Yeah.
Keep on scrolling down until you get to the 508, and you may look at that and go, "Oh, this is a better way to structure."
Yeah, and you know what's really weird is I have several corporations, LLCs, and they cost me $1,000 a piece. This one's going to cost me $3,000 for a nonprofit.
Yeah.
I mean,
See,
what the hell? It's a nonprofit. Why are they charging me more? Because they don't make any profit?
well, no, the 501c3 is not really what you think it is. That's why I'm suggesting you move to a 508.
Thank you so much. Is there any way I can be in touch with you out of this?
Yeah, Dave's got all my coordinates. He knows my street address. He's been here dancing at night.
I will connect you guys.
Thank you, Dave.
Even make
Thank
it
you
a
both.
note.
Yeah, I need that help because I'm a one-man band at this point, but I'm reaching out to some major players and I think I'm going to be getting them.
How much are you looking to raise?
So
How much are you looking to raise, Lou?
The sky's the limit. And I think it will be. This is gonna hit big.
All right, so we will definitely get in contact because my company in the last 3 months has taken off like a rocket, and we are actually.
That's what's gonna happen here. What does your company do?
It's all technology. Everything's
Cool.
in technology, and but we've taken off. This whole COVID thing has actually created a huge business behind the scenes.
Yeah, and I'm excited about this too because this is what I want to do with my life.
I think it's interesting that your last name means food in the land of Mother Earth.
And bread from heaven, yeah.
Yep.
And I've been a food photographer my whole life.
Isn't that fascinating?
Yeah, it is.
Okay, folks, it's 4 o'clock. Do we have any last questions for Ira?
So Ira, as an AP photographer, what was your best picture? What hit you the most?
So that's an easy one. You're probably old enough to know this picture if you watch sports. I took the most published picture from the 1988 Summer Olympics, which was Ben Johnson crossing the finish line, the 100-meter with Carl Lewis. And he's got his hand in the air and he's looking back at Carl Lewis as he crosses the finish line. And that was my picture.
You know, it was amazing. Is that you actually
I remember
that. And if you happen to ever be looking at anything about the Crips and the Bloods in the 80s, and you see black and white photos, those are probably mine. So being the one single guy in the AP Los Angeles Bureau and having my own body armor, I pretty much covered all the gang stories in the late 80s. So.
Ira, what's really impressive is that you actually ran faster than they did so that you could get in front of them to take the picture.
Yeah, that's on so many levels.
Ira, I thought your name was familiar. I think we crossed paths because I worked for the New York Times for 15 years.
Out of where? Oh, well, Lou, we've met before.
I know, yeah. 1975 through 1990, I was a staff photographer for them. I traveled around the world.
Yeah. So, yeah, I'm sure we've crossed paths because I was in New Jersey in the mid 80s in the shore. So,
yeah, but Jersey and New York City are two different worlds. I'm sorry.
Oil and water.
No, garbage and the Supreme Estate.
Cool. You can always reach me at ira@iragostin.com if you have a question or a follow-up or anything, and the slide deck will be available on Thursday, Dave said. So thank you so much for having me. It was a pleasure to give you some of my thoughts.
Thank you.
Bravo.
Thank you so much, Ira.
Thanks,
Ira,
Ira.
thank you so much.
Thanks, Ira.
Thanks, Ira. Good to see you.